Hi everyone and welcome to K-Tapes. Today we're going to look at another great film, but first let me ask you this question. Have you ever heard about the movie called Thunder of Gigantic Serpent? Well, if you did, chances are you may know the movie we're going to talk about today. So Thunder of Gigantic Serpent was a film produced by Godfrey Ho and his company IFD. But the film we're going to talk about today is pretty much the film that was used to make Thunder of Gigantic Serpent, which was called Snake King or The King of Snakes, depending on the title you prefer. So the film has been released in Korea under the A-Jin production company, and this is the videotape right here. It is actually very rare. I came across this tape only once, and here it is. Sadly, I already sold it. I do not hold on to many of my tapes because I do collect other stuff. So this one is already sold, but it is very rare. So the person who purchased it, well, lucky fella. So if you look at the tape right here, amazing shape, great quality. I hope I can find another one someday, but chances are I won't because it's already 2018, and as you know, it's probably the same case back in the States or even in Europe, but tapes are getting very, very hard to find, especially in this condition. In Korea, by the way, we have like a very, summer is very hot. We have the monsoon season, so it makes everything very, like mold can get into tapes and things, so it's very hard to keep tapes in that condition. So let's look at this gorgeous film right here. As you can see, great condition. This is not the original casing, the original clamshell. I guess it was, I believe it was like a blue one at the time, or maybe a red one, but I don't even recall if A-Jin production made like their own clamshells with the logos right here that they usually have. Like some companies did that. But one thing you may want to know is that A-Jin production was kind of an underdog company, like not really famous in Korea. They've released like a couple of Taiwanese films. Other ones that come to my mind right now, maybe Friendly Shock, if you've ever heard of that film. We're going to talk about it like in a week or two, so stay tuned for that one. It's a really special film. And they also made a couple of US made-for-TV films that they've released on their label, but nothing really outstanding, to be honest. And even if I look around and I check like all my tapes, I can maybe pinpoint like one or two are from A-Jin production, so it's a small label. Another thing, once again, if we look at the runtime right here, that is, like I told you in the last video, that is very typical from Korean production and Korean videotapes, but it runs 90 minutes. It says 90 minutes, but the movie might be like an hour and, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So they always go with that 90 minutes right here. And this one is no exception. So if we look at the artwork right here, one thing that is really fun to notice is the text at the top here, the sentence, which pretty much translates as special movie for children. So I guess it's for children, but not really. So that's kind of funny. You have the main actor right here, Danny Lee, that appears in the bottom corner. If you look at the main image on the videotape, like the snake surrounding the building right there, that actually has been taken or borrowed from or inspired for the release of a Korean film that came out later in 2007, which was called The War. Maybe you remember this film. It didn't get like a very good rating. I think it got like 3.6 out of 10 on IMDb, so it's pretty low score. It's a cheese fest. I mean, if that's your kind of thing, you should you should check it out. But the director, Shim Yeon-rae, he made better films like in the 90s and maybe even in the late 80s. He was very famous for his character of Yonggu, which was kind of like a silly character making jokes. That kind of stuff was really popular in Korea back in the days. So now let's check how this tape compares with the other release that exists of this film, which is the Japanese videotape. I couldn't find any other releases in the world. Honestly, I've looked around, I checked on the internet, I've asked other collectors, and it's pretty much down to this one, the Korean release, and the Japanese release. So stay tuned and let's check how they compare with sound, contrast in picture, and finally, image quality. For the color and contrast, if you look right here at the Korean version, you can tell that it's very well balanced. I mean, if you look at Danny Lee's character, you can see the details in his jacket. Also, if you take a closer look at the clock behind, you can see the hands and everything. So you see a great deal of details, and it's not like too dark in some areas. Like everything is pretty bright. Now, if we take a look at the Japanese version, this one is by far the darkest one. You can see any details again in Danny Lee's jacket. You can see anything in the clock behind, and personally don't really like this one. Finally, if we take a look at the Taiwanese version, this one has a very good balance of blue, green, and red. All the colors are great, except once again the contrasts are maybe a bit too high. If you look at the clock behind, you can see the hands, and even almost you can see the numbers, so that's pretty good.
是，什么 B 计划？这是国家机密，我有权利知道，我是设计人。局长，你是在利用动物做实验吗？
Finally, for the aspect ratio, first of all, the Korean version looks pretty good, although it's missing a bit of information on the left and the right. Top and bottom seems fine. It's about the same as the Japanese version. The aspect ratio is, once again, like I said, it's okay, but it's not the full letterbox, like widescreen aspect ratio of like 185. It's more like a 170, I would say. Now, if we look at the Japanese version, now you can tell that there's way more information on the left and right of the picture. Although if you look at the top and bottom, the top is the same as the Korean version. Although the bottom, I think it's slightly cropped up, maybe like not too much. Maybe it's because of the contrasts are so high, so it's hard to gauge where the image ends. But on the left and right, you can tell that you gain significant amount of image. And now finally, for the Taiwanese version, this one is way too cropped. Again, if you look at this scene here, you can tell that it's missing so much information on the left side of the picture. One thing you can notice is the very annoying logo on the top left corner of the picture. It reminds me of some of those like Indian films where they kept like the logo throughout the film. In this case, it's there. You have to deal with it, and it can be very annoying at some time when it's hiding like a character or something else important in the film. So thanks again for watching this week, and stay tuned for next week with another episode of K-Tapes, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks!